Assalamu alaikum everyone. I hope all you are fine. That's good. And at the same time, I expect that you have started working, and I hope that the last session that was a little bit different session in the sense because we were talking about certain technical things, and yes, of course, today we have to talk more technical things, but at the same time, I expect that sometimes. If I say that some sessions are a little longer, please do not get worried, do not get exhausted, and do not get bored. Yes, exactly, you've got the opportunity at home that you can stop listening to recording, but you can refer to some other parts. Yes, you can have a cup of tea with you and you can enjoy learning. Okay, that's pretty good. My dear students, we are on the third week now, and this is our session number 5. So you will see that when we picked up the first session, the things were a little easier in the sense that common things were talked about. But now you can see that we are jumping into the world of technical areas, and I hope that I would enjoy your cooperation in the coming days, and of course today. So welcome to session number 5, week 3. Dear students, today we would like to learn about the following areas. The first is a speech mechanism, voice elaboration, and then we should try to understand again voiced and voiceless consonants, and then places of articulation and sounds elaboration. As I told you that we try to understand, or we try to classify the consonants on the basis of 3: voicing, places of articulation, and manner of articulation. So the second area, that is the places of articulation, is a very important area so far as this session is concerned, and I hope that you should concentrate and you should try to get yourself involved in all sorts of activities which I request you to do during the session and then after the session. Okay? And the most important thing which we need to understand today is the speech mechanism. But before we talk about speech mechanism, I hope you must answer me one question. What do you feel when you are speaking English or Urdu? Do you throw the air outside or you suck the air inside? Yes, exactly. The answer is that we throw the air outside. But that's not the case with all the languages of the world. Since we know the languages we speak, that's why we can say, all right, we throw the air outside. But there are many languages in the world, remember. The speakers of those languages, while speaking, they suck the air inside. So that's why it's very important to understand the first statement. Listen to me very carefully, and if required, I shall be just trying to analyze it. The overwhelming majority of sounds found in human speeches are produced by an aggressive pulmonic airstream. Please do not call this word aggressive. Do not pronounce this word as aggressive. This is not aggressive. If you just pronounce this word as aggressive, the meanings are changed. I hope you remember when I picked up the first, some words in the first session, and the words were phonetics and phonology. And I told you when you say, for example, phonetics, the entire meaning of the word is changed. That's why we have to be very careful since we are the students of phonetics and phonology. I am saying the overwhelming majority of sounds found in human speech are produced by an aggressive pulmonic airstream. Aggressive pulmonic airstream. An outgoing stream of air produced by the lungs contracting, partially collapsing inwards, and thus pushing the air contained within them outwards. Now, what is the system we understand? The speech sounds we produce, or this time, for example, I am speaking English and I am producing English speech sounds. or the sounds of English, but how? Aggressive pulmonic airstream, aggressive pulmonic airstream. And what does that mean? That means something is happening in the lungs. So lungs push the air outside. The speaker, this time I'm the speaker, and I'm pushing the air outside. Alright? It is written in the last part of this statement that thus pushing the air contained within them outwards. The lungs keep the air. I don't want to talk about the venous system or the blood system inside or the respiratory system. I'm simply saying that the air which is inside us while we are breathing and while we are speaking, remember, we never try to suck the air inside when we are producing any sound. Rather, we throw the air outside. That means our lungs automatically, depending upon the nature of the language, nature of the speaker of the language, what happens if, for example, there are certain languages in African countries and the speakers suck the air when they speak, but over here, aggressive pulmonic airstream, that is very important to understand. Aggressive pulmonic airstream, that something happens in the world of lungs, contracting, they contract, right? And thus pushing the air contained within them outwards. So there is contraction where the lungs, and then they push the air outwards. And definitely through the windpipe, I already had a discussion on this, that what happens in the sound box, right, and afterwards. So this is very important to understand. And then this airstream then passes through the larynx. The first stop, the first processor. This airstream then passes through the larynx, known familiarly as the Adam's apple. I told you many a time this part of a human body, and definitely I asked you to touch it when we were talking about voicing, and again we shall be referring to it when we'll be talking about voicing as a passing reference. And along a tube of the complex shape formed by the mouth and nose, termed the vocal tract. So vocal tract is what? It's a tube, right? Its shape is little complex. What do you think about flute? Have you seen flute? Have you ever played flute? Have you seen it closely? Have you seen certain dots? I mean the blank places, the open places on the flute? The player all the time keeps fingers on those spots. Just like that, the human speech sounds are produced. So that is the very important part of our human body, that is the vocal tract, the Adam's apple, the processor, the first processor in fact, which processes the airstream which is sent by the lungs, pushed by the lungs. Okay, that's very important to understand the speech mechanism. When you want to understand the speech mechanism, you must remember number one, aggressive pulmonic airstream. This is aggressive pulmonic airstream through which I am this time talking to you. At the same time, you must not forget that a variety of muscles interact to produce changes in the configuration of the vocal tract, so as to allow parts of the speech organs to come into contact or near contact with other parts, and that is to say articulate. Now, something more to understand. Variety of muscles interact to produce changes in the configuration of the vocal tract. All the time there is a change in the vocal tract or the configuration of the vocal tract. And how it is done? It is done by the speech organs, different speech organs. Sometimes they are in contact with one another, sometimes they come close to each other or one another, and that makes articulation. And that makes us human being. Because we can produce sounds, the patterned sounds, the sounds which carry meaning. Whatever the language we are speaking, my dear students, it's very important to understand the speech mechanism. As a student of phonetics and phonology. For example, it is something to be satisfied that I know, alright, what is the mechanism I have inside me when I'm speaking English? Or what are the things I need to understand if I want to learn English? Now, what makes me a good learner? In fact, I want to learn English because I want to articulate. I want to articulate. And this is what articulation is we've been talking about, and we talked in detail in our previous sessions when we tried to understand the articulatory phonetics. So it is the working of speech organs. They come close to each other, to one another, sometimes very close, sometimes near contact, and to ensure there is articulation. And then remember, phoneticians term these anatomical bits and pieces the articulators. Now the first word which is new in the sense other than articulatory phonetics we come to know is articulators. That means the speech organ's second name can be, or it is, articulators. Articulators. Hence the term for the branch of science known as articulatory phonetics. We have to understand the speech organs with a different perspective now, and we have to call them articulators. I don't want to talk about the active articulators or the passive articulators, which articulators are contributing more, which are not contributing more. Remember, all articulators, all speech organs are all the time contributing. They are playing their role, but what happens since we are not conscious about the role they are playing? This is what the science tells us, phonetics tells us, of course, and the contributing disciplines, the other disciplines tell us how do these speech organs work. This is what we call speech mechanism, all right? And then this slide also tells us the vocal folds, also called the vocal cords, vibrate very rapidly when an airstream is allowed to pass between them. This is what we tried to learn in the previous slides, or maybe during the previous session. What happens, in fact? There is airstream and that is passing. And what happens over there? We have got the flaps, we have got the muscles, right? Vocal cords are there. So the vocal folds vibrate very rapidly when an airstream is allowed to pass between them, producing what is termed voice. That is a sort of buzz which one can hear and feel in vowels and in some consonant sounds. So buzzing, sort of buzz, zzz, vibration is there. So this is what, when the airstream is passing from that place, what happens? It causes, the air causes those flaps, those muscles either to vibrate or not to vibrate. And that's why we are left with the vowels and consonants. But when we name vowels, that means they are all voiced sounds. But when we talk about consonants, some of them are voiced and some of them are voiceless. Definitely we'll be talking about them today. Now I want you to concentrate on this slide. Can you see it? Whatever I said. The speech organs or the tracts which are in red, you can understand that there are two ways we can throw the air outside while talking, while speaking. Most of the time we are sending the air through our mouth, and I want you to understand, yes, exactly, you can recall that there are only 3 sounds which I named in fact in my previous session. Other than those, I think the most of the sounds are released, or the sound waves are released through the mouth. So you can concentrate on this slide. But I think we have to understand the cycle of voice production, and this slide can help us. Whatever I have said, you can see now in this slide. Now look, for example, on the top we have got nervous system. Brain cells are all the time commanding, giving directions to the other parts of our body. And this time we are concerned with what? The speech mechanism, definitely. Right? And what happens? We have to jump. When we come downwards, we have got respiratory system. That is the middle part of our body. It is not only lungs. I told you, for example, in my previous session, that diaphragm is a place close to abdomen. Of course, the ribs are also working over here. They are pushing. They are giving support to lungs. So is the case with diaphragm. Close to abdomen, they push the lungs upward, and at that spot, what happened? The airstream the lungs have, they have to push them outward. Right? And they send the entire airstream to the phonetory system. The phonetory system is very important. The air comes, there are two things are being done. One is the oxygen we are inhaling, and the the carbon dioxide we are releasing. That is another part. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about that particular science. I am just focusing myself, restricting myself, airstream, and that is sent where? Phonetory system. So the same airstream, right? Maybe carbon dioxide, I don't want to name it, but I want to tell you that the airstream is pushed there. When the phonetory system receives that airstream, what happens? The job of articulatory system starts. All right? And this is the complete world over here. Remember the complex role of speech organs is done over here. So articulatory system, that's why I still remember I had a talk with you that, all right, focus on articulatory and acoustic, because we are left with two. Either someone is speaking and someone is listening. Do you remember the slide during the first session I presented before you, that one is the speaker, the other one is a listener? And I said, all right, this is not only one speaker and one hearer. A complete world is there inside the mouth of the speaker, and definitely complete world is there. The processes are there in the ears of the hearer. So the articulatory system starts over here. And then when we are producing sounds and we are done with the production of speech sounds, of course we send those sounds to the hearer. Here comes the auditory system. Here comes the auditory system. I am speaking English. It is possible I am using some wrong sounds. If you are an expert, you can say, oh, no. This man is not producing this sound properly. For example, I am not saying that I am speaking British English or American English. But if I claim that I am speaking American English and an expert, American English expert, is listening to me, and he finds or she finds, no, this man is not speaking American English primarily, he is speaking British English. So I don't have the right to claim that what English I am speaking. But for example's sake, I told you that we have to refer to British model. Okay? But whatever the English is, I'm not talking about English primarily, I'm talking about the voice production system. So when there is an auditory system, okay, auditory system starts its working and sends all these sounds through the nervous system again to the commander. Just imagine what is the time it takes. No time, in fact. So you must remember the entire cycle of voice production. This is what happens inside us when we talk about single speech sound. I'm not talking about complete language. I'm simply saying one sound even. So this is the entire cycle of voice production. Now let's come back to voicing again. After having seen the previous slide, now what is voicing? The airstream is sent where? To the phonetory system, of course. Now watch over here. If the vocal folds vibrate, we will hear the sound that we call voicing or phonation. It's voicing or phonation. There are many different sorts of voicing that we can produce. Phonation, the new term, connected with the previous slide, the phonetory system. Alright, if the vocal folds are vibrating, we can determine whether voicing is occurring or not. Now, think of the differences in the quality of your voice between singing, shouting, and speaking quietly. I want you to think about singing, shouting, and speaking. If you are singing with high notes, very high notes, do you think this is singing? But if you are speaking like this, please be quiet, and somebody says, look, he is shouting, do you think you are really shouting? Or if I am speaking like this, please speak quietly, do you think I am speaking quietly? I started with please in a low tone, but I say speak quietly. Now, so what happens? Do you remember the circumstances I talked about? Certain intensities I talked about? Alright, now let's get back to this line. Again, think of the differences in the quality of your voice between singing, shouting, and speaking quietly. Or think of the different voices you might use reading a story to young children, in which you have to read out what is said by characters such as giants, fairies, mice, or ducks. Many of the differences are made with the larynx. I am more concerned with the concept of larynx, in fact. Can you recall some of the stories which your grandmother, your grandfather, they read out for you? And if you recall, sometimes they used to act like the fairy, and sometimes they used to act like the giant if they were introducing the character of giant to you. For example, you people are studying dramas, or you have read dramas, maybe Shakespearean drama, or maybe modern drama, or you are going to read some dramas. If I speak these lines, very popular lines of William Shakespeare's Hamlet, to be or not to be, that's the question of life. But if I speak this line like this, to be or not to be is the question of life. Whether it is nobler in the mind, right? So, why? Because Hamlet is talking to himself. He's not shouting. He's putting certain questions on him. So what I am trying to say is that there is a different methodology when you are engaged in dialect delivery. So it is the world of larynx, in fact, that enables you to speak a dialect the way it should be spoken. Or for example, if you refer to any poetic item, maybe from the world of your English, if I say, for example, referring to John Donne's very famous lines, if you allow me to say, such wilt thou be to me who must, like the other foot obliquely run. Thy firmness makes my circle just, and makes me end where I begun. So what happens? You have to assume the role of the writer. But what I am trying to make you understand is that this is the larynx place, which enables you to draw the differences of the speech you are using or you are producing. If you're singing, there is another concept. Larynx job is different when you're singing. When you're shouting, larynx is playing a different role. But when you're speaking quietly, larynx is playing a different role. So in fact, all these roles are being played by larynx, and of course the vocal bands. This is what I told you. And these are the roles not only larynx is playing, remember the other speech organs. What we need to understand is that we have to understand the speech mechanism. Okay? In other words, for example, I would like to say that we can make changes in the vocal folds themselves. They can, for example, be made longer or shorter, more tense or more relaxed, or be more or less strongly pressed together. Now what happens that it is the automatic system that is built-in system by nature in us. But you have to connect this statement with the last statement of the previous slide. Depending upon the nature of the speech we are uttering, in fact, so we are in fact directing the world of neurology, the nervous system, that is directing the vocal folds. In fact, the brain cells are they are directing the vocal folds, what position they have to take. Do you have to become longer or shorter or tense or relaxed? What? So that's why the pressure of the air below the vocal folds can also be varied in intensity, frequency and quality. So what is the outcome? What I'm trying to make you understand is that it's the pressure of the air below the vocal folds. That is called subglottal pressure. What it is called? Subglottal pressure. So this is the pressure of the air below the vocal folds, and that can also be varied in intensity, frequency and quality. So what happens in fact? The neurological system in our body automatically provides variation. If we are to make intense speech, different variation, frequency is different and quality becomes different. Alright, so that is what we call the speech mechanism. The entire of this call is speech mechanism. Is it clear? Now I want you to focus on this slide and try to understand waves forms of speech. Can you see? Can you see? A, block A, ch. Ch. Can you feel the burst? Ch. But when you say j, there is no burst. There is, but not the way we speak ch. That's the burst. Can you understand it? Ch, chair, church, catch. So you can understand, you can feel, and you can see on the slide that it's a big burst. But when you say, for example, when you produce the sound j, j, the burst is not like that, isn't it? So depending, this is what we call, how do the waves form themselves when we are speaking? That's very important to understand. That's why, my dear very honorable students, time and again I try to present before you certain diagrams so that you may be able to understand when I say, for example, what we are doing. In fact, we are engaged presently to classify the consonants. We are trying to classify the consonants: voicing, place of articulation and manner of articulation. These are the bases on which we are trying to classify them. Okay? Now let's try to understand the difference between voiced and voiceless sounds. Let me read the statement. To feel the difference between voiced and voiceless sounds for yourself, place your fingers on your Adam's apple and produce first the sound of f. Sustain that sound for a few seconds. Now quickly switch to the sound of v. Now, I want you to do this exercise. If you really want to understand the voiced and voiceless sounds difference, put your thumb or your finger on your Adam's apple and produce the sound f. F. Sustain that sound for a few seconds, f, f, and then jump over to sound v, f, v, 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 v. So I'm doing for you people here just to make you understand. So there is a shift from voiceless to voiced world. F, v, f, v. So you should be able to feel very clearly the vibration that accompanies the sound of v, which is voiced, and in contrast to the absence of such vibration with f, which is voiceless. This is what I was demonstrating. That try to say the sound f and convert at once to v. You can understand when I am saying I'm producing the sound f, there is no vibration. But soon, when I shift to the v sound, upper teeth, lower lip, upper teeth, lower lip, upper teeth, lower lip, v. Both are labiodental sounds. Remember, both are labiodental. Upper teeth and lower lip. When you produce f, upper teeth, lower lip. When you produce v, upper teeth, lower lip. But there is a difference. What is the difference? One being voiced, the other being voiceless. Now, what has actually happened? Remember, voicing is a result of moving air, causing the vocal folds or vocal cords to vibrate within the larynx behind the cartilage of the atom sapple, the flaps, the muscles. This vibration, your voice, is what you feel and hear. You sustain the sound v. That's why when you were producing the sound v, in fact, you felt vibration. This is what happened to you, in fact. So this is what happened to you. All right? The air, in fact, moving air, causing the vocal folds to vibrate. So this vibration caused v sound as voiced sound, but f as voiceless sound. Now I want to further voicing. Maybe simple, but I want you to understand comprehensively. Remember, the only distinction between the first sound of su and zu, for example, is that sir. Sir is voiceless and z is voiced. In su, we are using sir sound. But in zu, we are using voiced sound. You can demonstrate by yourself. You can experiment it and say su. While producing sir sound, there is no vibration at all. But while producing zu, you feel at the time when you say z, there is vibration. So the same goes for few and view. The f is voiceless, v is voiced. Now further, that's a very simple demonstration, experiment. You can do it. If you say now, after me, without a second, you understand the voiced and voiceless. You can absolutely understand voicing. Say after me again. Or maybe next is say after me. So you can either hear the vibrations of the z or v by sticking your fingers into your ears, and you can feel them by touching the front of your larynx. So this time I am saying you can put your fingers in your ears and start saying zzz. You can feel the vibration even there, and say it v, I'm sure that you will be able to feel the vibration there. If not, you can put your thumb or your finger on your Adam's apple. So same happens again. For practical sake, I would like to say that this distinction is quite important in English, as there are many pairs of sounds that differ only in voicing. In the examples below, the first sound is voiceless, the other is voiced. I repeat, this distinction is quite important in English, as there are many pairs of sounds that differ only in voicing. In the examples below, the first sound is voiceless, the other is voiced. Now listen carefully and say after me, please. Pie, buy, try, dry, clue, glue, chew, Jew, thigh, thy. I repeat, and please say after me. Pie, buy, try, dry, clue, glue, chew, Jew, thigh, thy. Now this distinction can also be made in between two vowels. Okay? So you can also apply, so you can see now two vowels also. Rapid, rabbit, rapid, rabbit, metal, medal, or at the end of a word, pick, pig, leaf, leave, rich, ridge. So I hope that you understand now. So voicing can occur at any place, in the beginning, at the end of the word. Alright? So my dear students, now I want you to have a look on the anatomy of human voice. Look at the anatomy of human voice. On the right side, can you see larynx and vocal folds? You have already seen some of the photographs. Right? And on the left side, you can see nasal cavity, teeth, lips, and tongue. And yes, exactly, lungs are in front of you. And then pharynx, of course, that part, the windpipe, and sinuses. So this is what is the anatomy of the human voice. In a nutshell, we can say this is what, alright, we are left with. Nose, teeth, lips, tongue. This is what, alright, visible. But inside, what's going on, that is very complex. And only the student of phonetics and phonology can understand what's going inside us. We have been talking about voiced and voiceless consonants. And I told you in the beginning of this section that I shall be talking about voiced and voiceless sounds so far as the consonants are concerned. Remember, my dear students, there are 15 voiced consonants in English and there are 9 voiceless sounds. Traditionally, there are 15 voiced consonants and 9 voiceless sounds. You must not forget that there are 24 consonant sounds. I am not referring to alphabet of English, okay? I am referring to the voiced and voiceless consonant sounds. Traditionally, there are 44 sounds of English. I don't want to talk about them now, but today, since we are talking about the classification, and we have been talking about classification of consonants on the basis of 3, that's why today you must Understand, when I say voiced and voiceless sounds, we are left with 15 voiced sounds, which are consonants, and 9 voiceless. May I read for you first of all the voiced? Say after me. B, D, G, V, Z, Z, J, J, M, N, Eng, L, R, W, Y. And now the voiceless. Say after me, please. P, T, K, F, S, Sh, Ch, Th, H. Now let's talk about places of articulation. At the end of, or the bottom of this diagram, you can see it is written the articulators. My dear, very honorable students, remember we have got articulators inside us, which cause speech, which produce speech. Places of articulation. I want you now to understand this diagram. As I told you, during the course of studies, this course of your study, the course of studies of the students, remember you have to understand many diagrams, and without understanding the diagrams, whatever you see, there are many more. They're available everywhere. You can consult different material, no problem at all. But the diagrams which I try to present before you, in fact, are based what I am saying previously, or I shall be saying afterwards. This time you can say, for example, from the bottom, larynx is there. We have talked about larynx, and you understand what is larynx. On the right side, you can say pharynx, and then it goes upwards to the soft palate. Of course, that is the second part of alveolar ridge. It is also known as velum. And then there is the hard part of alveolar ridge. You can see close to hard palate, alveolar ridge, and afterward hard palate, and there is a soft palate. Then teeth are there, upper teeth and lower teeth. We've got nose, of course, nose, the end of what we said, nasal cavity, definitely. And we have upper teeth, upper lip and lower lip. And in between all of them is the tongue. Remember, now I am saying and I'm telling you, the most active articulator in human body is tongue. We shall try to understand the role of tongue in the production of speech sounds in the coming days, definitely, and in the slides after this one. But remember, throughout the course, so far as phonetics is concerned, of course, the first part of your course, that is very important, that we must know what are the active articulators. This time I am saying that tongue is one of the most active articulators in human body, and of course lips are there, but I am focusing on that. Okay? Well, dear students, before I talk about this particular slide, I want to make a request at this time, because it's very important, and the request is, please, I'm trying my level best that this virtual training or this virtual teaching should not be the way mostly it is thought and considered. I want you to be a participant. I know it's very difficult, I know it, but what happens that since you people are studying English language and literature and at the same time linguistics, so I think you are better visualizer. I always try to think that my students are sitting in front of me, and when I'm giving some sort of demonstration, to be very fair and honest, let me tell you that I try to demonstrate by assuming that all my students are sitting in front of me. So whenever I ask you to please do some sort of activity, you have to do that. Now, let's come to the business, and it is bilabial sounds are produced when the lips are brought together. Examples are p, which is voiceless, as in pay, or b and m, which are voiced, as in bay and may. I repeat. I hope that the things are getting clear now. In the beginning, I still remember when we started talking about phonetics in the first session, I presented before you some diagram and the word bilabial. That is the first term you came to know. Now, bilabial sounds are produced when the lips are brought together. Examples are p, which is voiceless sound, as in pay, or in b and m, which are voiced, as in bay and may. I want you, not during the session, but after this session, you can just practice some more. Pick up the words starting with p and pronounce them. And then pick up the words starting with b and m and pronounce them. The best way is to record your voice. It's a very good activity. I guarantee you that if you keep on recording your voice, which I suggest you, after the end of this course you will be a different graduate. Let me tell you very honestly, I have seen in my experience those who practiced a lot, they either have become wonderful teachers or they are very good speakers, and they are really let me tell you, I'm referring to their examples. Why? Because they kept on practicing. So this particular course is primarily based on practice. I'm not saying the others are not, but I am suggesting, and I'm concerned about this course because I am the instructor for this particular course. So you can see in the diagram the bilabial articulators or bilabial articulation. Can you see that both the lips are together? Together. P, b, m, p, b, m, p, b, m, pay, bay, may. Okay? Now think about the second term you came across. Do you remember? Labiodental. Yes, labiodental sounds are made when the lower lip is straight towards the upper front teeth. Examples are f, safe. It is a voiceless sound, f, and v, save, voiced. Labiodental, labial and dental, upper teeth, lower lip, upper teeth, lower lip. So labial dental sounds are made when the lower lip is raised towards the upper front teeth. Examples are f in safe and v in save. Now watch, one is voiceless consonant, the other one is voiced consonant. Now look at the diagram now. Look at the teeth. Look at the teeth, upper teeth. They are touching what? They are touching the lower lip. Can you see it? F, v. F, v. Good. And now I would like to present before you the dental sounds. Dental sounds are produced by touching the upper front teeth with the tip of the tongue. Examples are self, which is voiceless, and clothe, voiced. Self and clothe. Self and clothe. Clothe. So what's the position? What's the position? Dental. Yes, dental sounds are produced by touching the upper front teeth with the tip of the tongue. F and the. F and the. The sounds are f and the. F and the. This and that. Think. 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 Fin. Think. Think. The sound. When I say the sound, the, this, that, those. Exact sounds are th and the. Th and the. These are called dental sounds. So you can feel that the tip of the tongue is touching the inside of our upper teeth. Can you feel it when you say th? Or can you feel it when you say the? Yes, exactly. You can see in the diagram at the same time. What is the position of the tip of the tongue when you are producing the sound th? And when you are producing the sound the, this, that, those. Again, the tip of the tongue is touching the back of our front teeth. Okay? So my dear students, after having talked about voicing and the places of articulation so far as the consonants are concerned, the time has come to do some sort of self-assessment. But before we talk about self-assessment component, it is very important to remind you or ask you to recall whatever we have done today. As I told you that during all the session, it's very important because we have to talk in the beginning that what we are going to talk, but remember we don't have to elaborate. But after having done whatever is the subject matter of the session, it is imperative, right, to recapitulate whatever we have done. So it's very important that today we were talking about what? The most specific was that we were trying to understand voicing, since one of the bases for the classification of consonants. But afterwards, the things which we try to understand the place of articulation. And I have given you certain examples. For example, I have given to you how the bilabial sounds are produced, how the labiodental sounds are produced, how the dental sounds are produced. And by giving you the examples, I tried my level best to attach some sort of diagrams for you people so that you may be able to understand. Sometimes what happens, since we are talking, we are listening, and we are engaged in some sort of conversation or listening, speaking process virtually, that's why it becomes difficult. However, to be honest and fair, when I produce the sound, I try to do the same which is in front of me so that you may be able to understand and you may be able to do the same thing when you are sitting in front of your computer. Remember, virtual learning is sometimes difficult to me. Why? Because we simply listen and we forget. That's not the business we have to do. I want you to keep your pen and some blank pages all the time with you. They are very important. They are your supporters, in fact. The way there are certain articulators inside us, there are certain supporters. I call such things the supporters of learning. As I am the facilitator of learning, you can become facilitator of learning by yourself to yourself. How? You can accommodate yourself by having all these things with you. Yes, my always suggestion, that is evergreen suggestion to my student, is that when you are just having online or virtual learning, remember you must have a space. Whatever the space that is, that makes no difference that you are sitting anywhere, maybe in your room, maybe in your drawing room, maybe somewhere in the kitchen, that makes no difference. But you have to make a space. You have to make a space. The wonderful thing is that now internet facilities everywhere, and I hope that you have got a wonderful connectivity. So when you have got wonderful connectivity, what you can do is that you can find your place anywhere. When you feel, okay, I'm comfortable here, so I can do some sort of business, I can do some sort of activities. And most important thing, which I always suggest to my student, is the concentration. Concentration, that is the business. And then I always recommend that you should be a self-motivator. You know, there are two types of motivations all the time. One motivation is, I am sitting over here, your university is there, university is accommodating you, they are the external motivators, right? And they're all the time supporting you. Extrinsic motivation. But there is intrinsic inside you. That's why I'm saying that you should be a self-motivator to yourself. And when you talk about virtual learning, always remember the self-motivation is the most important thing that can help you. So let's come back to self-assessment after having done something about voicing, and of course the places of articulation in the production of speech sounds. We have to talk about today that you have to elaborate voicing. Please try to elaborate voicing. The second part which you need to do is that please try to make a difference between voiced and voiceless sounds, especially consonants. Please, after making the difference, I want you write them and then please record your voice. That's a wonderful activity. And when you complete this, I'm sure that you will be having again clear, crystal clear understanding of what we have done today. So after having talked about this, I want to close this session. So from my side, goodbye and good luck. Stay blessed.